Start by being called fools. Christians are fools. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 5, I believe, that if I'm going to be called a fool or called crazy, I'm going to be called that in the name of Jesus Christ. So on behalf of him, so I'm okay with being called a fool. My name is Ken Elsner. If you don't know who I am, it really doesn't matter. I'm one of the pastors, but excited that we have like a remnant here. That's awesome. Like, way to be diehard 4th of July. You know what? Church is here, and we're going to come and celebrate and worship, right? So, good job. So we're going to talk about this whole idea of religion and kind of this whole idea of religion, kind of are all religions the same? And there's quite a bit that we can talk about, and so we're just going to kind of dive in to that and just kind of see where God takes us. I remember probably about 13 years ago, I was taking a youth group from Vancouver down to Seattle to do kind of doing missions. We were kind of doing street evangelism. I'm not a big fan of street evangelism, but I do think it's a really good way to kind of dive into the deep end and kind of learn how to share your faith. And so I was taking some high school kids to the University of Washington's campus, right in Seattle, North Seattle. And we were hanging out, and we were just kind of talking to people, going up to people and say, hey, can we ask you, what do you think about religion, and specifically Christianity? And sometimes we'd engage in conversation, other times we wouldn't. And I remember this one conversation, this guy was sitting kind of cross-legged on the grass. He had books in front of him, kind of looked Seattle-ish, kind of grungy, and I sat down with him. I just said, hey, can I ask you what you think about religion? And he's like, well, it's really interesting that you'd ask me, because I'm actually a philosophy major. And I'm like, cool. And I said, well, what do you think about religion? He's like, well, really, I really think that all religions are about the same. They all point to God in some form or fashion. I don't think that any one religion is more right than the other. I think they're all about being good and kind of pointing to God. So that's kind of what I thought, and that's what he thought. And so I was like, that's really, really interesting. And the reality is that a lot of the country thinks the same way. And this was 12, 13 years ago, and in reality, that kind of thought has really just gotten bigger. So I guess what I want to ask you tonight is, have you ever been there? Have you ever been in a place in your kind of journey to find God, ever been in a place where you just kind of went, yeah, like, why Christianity? What is it about Christianity that makes it exclusive? And that's language kind of critics. And have you ever been in a place where you just go, God, I want to kind of know kind of where you're pointing me? Have you ever been in a place where you've not even been sure of like what to make of any kind of religion at all? Have you ever been in a place where maybe this is where you are right now, you've been invited by a friend and you're kind of a spiritual explorer, and you're just on the beginning kind of cusp of exploring, and you're like, I don't even know what to think of anything. So I'm here, I'm open, and I kind of want to hear what you have to say. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to kind of do some diving in, but I want to give kind of a framework, a boundary about tonight. I'm not going to give everything, because we don't have the time to give you all the historicity of Jesus. We don't have the time to give you the historicity of the Bible. That's up to you to do the homework. My brother-in-law, love him, grew up in the church, rejected a lot for a lot of various reasons, but has done his homework on every other religion just about out there. And when we start talking about Christianity, he just rejects it all. He's like, yeah, I just reject. He's like, he won't even really engage in conversations about Christ or the Bible, because he's like, it's just all fake. It's not real. Jesus, was some guy there, and he won't even engage the conversation. And so my challenge to you, whether you're an explorer or maybe you're in a place of maybe you know exactly where you are with faith and with Jesus, I want to challenge you that you should be doing your homework. You should be reading books like A Case for Faith by Lee Strobel or A Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. There are a lot of other books out there. You should be doing your homework so that you can back yourself up. But if you're new to this, and this is all new, you should still do your homework. If you want to argue with Christians, you should do your homework. So that's my framework. I want to tell you a story. Jesus was all about stories, parables. So I'm going to tell you one about an elephant. It's sort of funny. So there's an elephant. There's 3 blind guys. And they're all trying to figure out what an elephant is. So the first blind guy goes up and he starts like, he's feeling around, he's like, grabs the tail and he's like, well, the elephant is a snake. Because he's feeling the tail, it's long, it's like thin, and it's really, it's got a lot of flexibility in it. The next blind guy comes up and he starts feeling the leg, one of the legs of the elephant. If you've seen an elephant, in a zoo, I mean, they have huge legs, huge trunk-like legs. And he's like, the elephant is not a snake, it is a tree. It's like a tree. The third blind guy comes up and he's just feeling the body, and he's like, no, you guys are both wrong. The elephant is like a wall. So we have three different descriptions of an elephant, and this is supposed to represent that religions only understand part of God, and no one can have a real full picture of who God is or what religion looks like. Basically, the point is, the only way this parable makes sense is if the person telling the story has seen the whole elephant. Okay? The minute someone says all religions only see part of the truth, they begin to claim the very knowledge that they say no one else has. So for me to go, Jesus is the only way, and I have scripture to back that up and some history to back that up. As soon as I say that, people will accuse me of being arrogant. Well, the person who says that there is no, that there is no kind of absolute truth, that there's all these different ways, they start landing in absolute truth. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about 5 issues, and I try and like simplify these things, not necessarily make them easier, but just kind of narrow them down. So we're going to talk about 5 issues that I think are some of the most prevalent issues when we're talking about religion. And the first one is this. We're going to talk about the first one being pluralism. And basically, pluralism is what we've talked about, is that all religions all essentially lead to God, and there can't really be just one way to heaven. And when we talk about pluralism, the first service I said I don't really want to step on toes, and then I backed up and I said no, I really do. Second service I said I do want to step on toes, and so I'm just going to go with that again. One of the main proponents of pluralism in our culture today, especially in this country, is Oprah. Okay, so if you're an Oprah fan, I would challenge you to stop watching her, because she's denied the deity of Christ. She promotes, if you know anything about her, she loves to find people and raise them up, make them famous, make them rich, make them, have a huge influence. People that she's raised up are Deepak Chopra, who basically is a Hindu but is a universalist, who is a pluralist, who is a relativist, basically all ways lead to God. Her newest find is Eckhart Tolle, who's basically the same kind of guy, New Ager out of Vancouver via Germany, and is basically the same thing. Always lead to God, but ultimately underlying all this stuff, they would challenge you that eventually you could become God. Okay, and just to throw in a third one on this is Tom Cruise. Okay, Tom Cruise, Scientology. Scientology isn't really considered one of the main religions, but I mean, she loves Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise loves her, and she raises these people up, and all these people are pluralists. Okay, so the idea of pluralism is to claim full knowledge. In order to claim full knowledge of God, pluralists argue, is arrogance. So for me to say that Jesus is the only way is arrogant for me. When I've talked about this, the parable of the elephant and the blind man, in the past, when I've described it, people would nod their heads and like, yeah, I get that. I see that they can't really get the full picture of the elephant. But then I would remind them that the only way this parable makes sense then is if the person telling the story again has seen the whole elephant. Therefore, the minute one says all religions only see part of the truth, you are claiming the very knowledge you say no one else, or that no one else has. They are displaying the same arrogance that they say that we have. Because as soon as you take a stand and say all paths lead to God, you're saying there's a truth right there. All paths lead to God is a truth. In other words, to say all is relative is itself a true statement, but dangerous because it uses smoke and mirrors to make itself sound more tolerant than the rest. Most people who hold this view think that they are more enlightened than the rest of us, And those of us that would hold to absolutes, like Jesus being the only way, John 10:10, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me, they're more enlightened than us because they're broader minded than us. And I don't necessarily think that the people who think this way are like necessarily, I'm not saying they're evil, I'm not saying they're trying to trick people. It's that they've come to believe their form of truth in such a way that there can be no other way. So that's kind of the pluralist issue. You can go dig deeper on this one, but I kind of want to keep moving on because we want to get into just kind of some kind of bigger picture and deeper picture things. The next issue is the whole issue of religion, because we're talking, are all religions the same? And basically when I think about religion, I think about my life. For the first 18 years of my life, I grew up going to church, okay? My mom and dad, when they immigrated from Germany and Austria, respectively, they met in Canada. My mom grew up in Austria, was Catholic. My dad grew up in Germany, was Lutheran. And when they moved to Canada, met and married, they decided neither one of them wanted to kind of cave into being, Lutheran or Catholic. So they said, well, what are we going to do? Let's find a church that would kind of meet us halfway. So they joined the United Church of Canada, which is kind of more of a liberal end of the church. Basically, if you're a good person, that's good. They teach the Bible, but that's about it. So I grew up going to church and believed that being a Christian was being a good person. So on Sundays, I sang in the choir, the kids' choir. I sang higher than the girls, and probably a lot of ways cuter than the girls. But that's just me being arrogant. And grew up singing in the choir, going to Sunday school. Wednesdays, I found out once I became a Christian, I found out that I actually was in a youth group. But that was, once you get into this Christian subculture, you find out all these things. So I found out that I was in a youth group on so Sundays and Wednesdays, I went to church. I was a really good kid on Sundays and Wednesdays. Literally descriptors for me was he's such a little angel. He's so nice. He's so cute. I look at my kids and I'm like, those are my, that was me when I was their age. And I'm praying that they will not be me. Every other day of the week, especially when I turned 12, I started making poor choices. 12 years old, I was smoking dope. I was drinking. I was making out with girls. Just making really poor choices based upon friendships. So Sundays and Wednesdays, I was a good kid. Every other day, I wasn't, okay? But I had this framework that if I was a Christian, you just need to be a good person. Be nice to people, that's it. Another piece of my story, for those kind of from as far back as I can remember dreams, I remember having a reoccurring dream like regularly. So much so that I would wake up, when I was a little kid, I would wake up screaming and crying, and my mom would have to come and comfort me. And as I got older, I just would lay in my bed sobbing. And the dream was I had died, I was in my coffin, and I was in my coffin, and I was like, it was dark, and I was alone, and I felt this utter, complete, aloneness. And I would just weep and cry. And there's nothing that I could do about it. It just was there. Religion doesn't work. It doesn't take away those oppressive feelings that you might feel and that maybe you're feeling right now. It doesn't work. It was never meant to work. And there's reasons why. Look at John 10:10. I've already said this, but the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came, this is Jesus talking, that they may have life and have it abundantly. Notice that Jesus doesn't say, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have a really awesome religion and beautiful buildings and that they would just be full of ritual, okay? That's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying, I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. And then we get into Acts chapter 2, and we see the beginning of the church and look at what happens in the beginning of the church. Let's go to those verses. And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. Does that sound like religion to you? Really? as you read that and you think about John 10:10, that I've come that they may have life and have it abundantly or have it to the full, does that sound like religion? It doesn't to me. That sounds like people living life together and loving each other and encouraging each other and doing the things that they had heard and seen from Jesus. That's what Jesus came for, because religion doesn't work. Religion is man-made. And the interesting thing about that Acts passage is that the church was forming in Jerusalem, which is the seat of all Judaism. Judaism was just all about ritual. It was all about rules and regulations. I mean, they had 600 plus rules for how you were to live your life. On the Sabbath, you weren't supposed to work, so you had rules for that. So here's a really great rule for all the guys and the girls maybe that might spit. You couldn't spit on the Sabbath. Do you know why? Because when you spit, it would hit the ground, it would start to roll, and that was tilling the soil. That literally is a rule, a law to be abided by on the Sabbath. That's religion. This is life, okay? So the next piece of this is that as we move out of religion is the truth piece. And this is kind of a big one. Because this is where a lot of people get hung up. We get into conversations. I've been in so many conversations where people go, there are no absolutes, okay? There is no absolute truth, which is in itself, it's so funny. When someone says there are no absolutes, there is no absolute truth, that is a truth. So it's kind of a slippery slope and a kind of a circular argument. But I'm going to give you kind of an analogy, and I want you to think about how do you find truth. So I'm going to give you an analogy about this whole thing of truth and how pluralism can lead us into really bad places. So I want to build a house. Just go with me on this. I want to build a house. So I hire an architect, okay? And I get my architect and I go, okay, I really want you to build me this great house and 8,000 square feet and a pool and, media room and all that stuff, bowling alley. And he's like, great, I'd love to build it for you. And I said, what's your framework for measurement? He's like, well, 12 inches is a foot. That's what I base it on. I said, okay, great. And he's like, and here's my measuring tool. This is 12 inches right here. I'm like, okay, great. So he draws up the plans. I'm like, okay, we got to hire a general contractor. So we hire a general contractor. And I'm like, okay, here are my plans. And he's like, great, I work with these. I'm like, so what's your framework for measurement? He's like, 12 inches is a foot. And I'm like, awesome. And he's like, here's my foot. Here's a foot. This is 12 inches right here. I'm like, okay, great. And then we hire out our framer. We got the foundation laid, and we hire out our framer, and we're like, okay, what's your frame of reference for measurement? He's like, 12 inches is a foot. I'm like, perfect. It goes along with everybody else. Here's my 12 inches. Okay. This is my foot. I'm like, okay. So if all truth is relative and all ways lead to God, we're putting that same framework on that all 12 inches, is basically whatever we want to make it to be. Here's what we're looking at. Architect, okay? General contractor, 12 inches, 12 inches. Framer, 12 inches. What do you think my house is going to look like? Anybody building in here, what do you think my house is going to look like? I started thinking of Dr. Seuss, okay? Like just the whole Whoville and just really crazy shapes. But in reality, I don't even think that the house would be livable. I think in the end, I would end up having to live in a cave for safety reasons. Because when we start pushing the envelope of truth is relative, and whatever truth is yours is good for you, and whatever truth is there for you, that's good, great. We start going to that degree, and this is what we end up with. We have no frame of reference. So when Jesus says, when Jesus says in John 14:6, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me, we get into an issue. But I want to step back one little bit, and we're going to talk about two principles within philosophy, just to help you understand kind of where this truth kind of piece gets a little dicey. There are two laws within philosophy when we're kind of talking about truth. And the basic one, the first one is the law of non-contradiction. And basically it's this, that it says that two opposite statements cannot be true at the same time in the same sense. So when we make the statement, God exists, then its opposite, God does not exist, cannot be true at the same time. God exists and God does not exist, cannot coexist at the same time. If one is true, the other must be false. We were designed to be unable to hold on to one if there's an opposing argument or opposing truth going on. Any true statement requires that its converse cannot be true. And here's the thing about postmodern relativists and pluralists. They reject this first law. They would reject that the idea of God exists and God cannot exist, those two things, they reject that argument. There's a difference, though. So just as you enter into conversations with people, rejecting and refuting are two different things. Rejecting is just going, I don't really like that. I don't really like your argument, so I'm walking away because I don't really like it. Refuting is, here's why I disagree with it, and here's my framework. Here are my arguments to back myself up, okay? Rejecting, walking away, I just don't like it, and I don't like you. You smell bad and whatever, I'm just walking away. And refuting is having backup, having ability to be able to articulate why you disagree. Very different. Most pluralists and relativists just reject ideas. The second law is the law of excluded middle. That states that something either is or is not, and there is no third alternative. So again, we come back to the God exists. God exists is either true or false. There is no middle ground. There is no, God sort of exists, okay? There is no middle ground. He either exists or he doesn't exist. It's that simple. And again, we get into the issue of, do you reject it or refute it? Most people just reject it because they don't like they don't like getting pushed into the deeper conversation. And again, we come back to John 14:6. When we talk about this, that Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except me. So Jesus is saying, I am the way and the truth. So he's saying, I am the truth and I am truth. No other teacher, no other prophet in any of the other religious frameworks, any of the major religions have ever claimed that. They've never claimed that. They will say, listen, I can put you on a path to enlightenment. I can show you some steps to find some amount of truth, but no one, Muhammad, Buddha, any of the bazillion gods within Hinduism have ever said that. Have ever said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. Personally, when I think about religion, I think it's just a smokescreen to get into the deeper issues. And really the deeper issue is, there's kind of two, but the big one we're going to talk about right now is Jesus. People wrestle with Jesus, what to do with him. He's the most famous person in all the world. More songs have been sung to him, artwork created of him, and books written about him than anyone else who has ever lived. And that's fact. The reality is so great about Jesus' presence over us is that our calendar and our time is divided based upon his birth. What is it? BC, before Christ. He was born, and then his death. Annos Domini, in the year of our Lord. Our time, our calendar is based upon who Jesus is. Think about pop culture for a little bit. Jesus often appears in some really classic TV programming, The Simpsons and South Park. Okay? Anybody ever seen Jesus on any of those? Yes, I think I may have once or twice. Dog the Bounty Hunter, classic again programming. Dog the Bounty Hunter likes to pray to Jesus. I guess he is a Christ follower. But he loves to gather his team together. If you know who Dog the Bounty Hunter is, I think he kind of travels. He was in Hawaii, but then he was in Colorado. But he's a bounty hunter, goes after guys that have jumped, and women who have jumped parole and jumped their bonds and all that. So he likes to gather his team together, and they hold hands and they pray. And Lord Jesus, just help us capture our convict and help us to, be able to mace him and her and pin him to the ground and handcuff him, get him in the vehicle so that we can, have a cigarette with them and pray with them. That's what they're praying. Like, literally, they're praying to Jesus. So Dog the Bounty Hunter is great. About 100 films have been made about Jesus, including I haven't actually seen this, but I love the title, and so I probably should try and see this, especially because it's Canadian. There's a great one called, it's the Kung Fu Horror Musical Comedy, Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter. True, that is an actual movie. And really one of our favorites that we like to show clips from is Talladega Nights. Who does Ricky Bobby pray to? 8 pounds, 6 ounce baby Jesus in his golden fleece diapers, right? He prays for his smoking hot wife. He's very thankful for her. I'm also thankful for my smoking hot wife. So, there's Jesus, pop culture. And really probably one of the biggest ones out of history, in recent history, is a certain Beatle claimed what? That the Beatles were now what? Bigger than Jesus. And I don't want to be disrespectful of John Lennon because he had a huge impact on our culture, but I would challenge that it's probably not a good idea to make those kinds of claims, okay? Because within a few years of that, he was shot and killed. I mean, the person who did it was deranged and it was bad, but we need to be careful about the things that we say about Jesus Christ. Buddhism teaches that Jesus was not God, but rather an enlightened man like Buddha. Hinduism, with its many views of Jesus, does not consider him to be the only God, but most likely a wise man or incarnation of God, much like Krishna. And the reality is about Hinduism that there are millions of gods. So this podium is a god. These chairs are gods. That box of Kleenexes is a god. This monitor is a god. I mean, literally, that's how kind of crazy Hinduism can get. Everything is a god, okay? Islam teaches that Jesus was merely a man and a prophet who was inferior to Muhammad, which is really interesting to me because 3 years ago I found out some things about the Quran that really kind of rocked kind of some of my perspectives about Islam. And basically is this, that we're going to put the reference up, but this is a passage in the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verses 42 through 55, speaks specifically to a person called Isa. And Isa is Jesus. And the passage is specifically talking to a virgin who's going to give birth. Allah is talking to this virgin who's going to give birth to this son. So this child is virginal birth, and he will have power over death, and he will teach the people about the book. The book is not the Quran. That's within the Quran, you guys. There's framework for who Jesus is, but we don't like to talk about that. John chapter 6, verses 25 to 38 is a great, another picture of who Jesus is. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not labor for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him God the Father has set his seal." When they said to him, "What must we do?" And listen to that verse really close. What must we do to be doing the works of God? What do we need? What steps do we need to take? They're thinking works because they're thinking in the framework of Judaism. You do certain things. You sacrifice. You do these things. And Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." There's no works. There's no do these steps. None of this pray 5 times a day. It's simply believe in the one whom he has sent. So they said to him, "Then what sign do you do that we may see and believe you? What work do you perform? Our fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." And Jesus then said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." And Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me and yet do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me." No other prophet, no other teacher came down ever has made a claim about coming down from heaven. All of them were born normally from man and wife birthing and conjugal visit kind of stuff, and they died. Jesus is the only one who said, I am coming down from heaven to be the bread of life, to be the door, to be the good shepherd. And Jesus is the only one who's saying, listen, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. You simply need to believe in the one whom the Father has sent. I got an email from Brad Livingood and this morning after the morning services, and he kind of thanked me for the message, but he gave me a story that I thought was really, really good. And to give you another picture, and then we're going to move on to the last piece. This illustration is basically everyone's in heaven, and Jesus is there, and God the Father on a hillside, and we're sitting with God, and we're kind of looking at all the people, and there, one side there's the Hindus, and one side there's the Islamists, and over here there's the Buddhists, and going to God. God, really? Like everyone's here. There was no like it was all good. Every way was to heaven. He's like, yep. It was all good. All paths led to me. Think about Jesus as he's sitting there. Jesus is going, really? So my whole coming down from heaven, being born and living 33 years, being beaten, being bruised, being ridiculed, going to a cross horribly and dying for what? So that basically everybody gets to get to heaven? That's what this was for? When I was praying in the garden, Lord, Father, take this cup from me. You knew that all paths were going to lead to you. Why did I go through that? Think about that. If all paths lead to heaven, why would the Father send his only begotten Son to die for all of us? Why? And it leads us to the last piece. The grace issue. So, how many here like presents? Okay, 5 of you. Really? Presents, people? Okay. Like cars, bicycles, snowboards, right? Yeah. Yes, okay. Trampolines? No? We have a trampoline. Okay, so I like presents. I especially like them when they're surprises, but that's my whole love language thing, and so I like to give Kristen presents with surprises, and she goes, don't really like the surprises, but it's, we do the love language that we want. So, but I like to give presents, and I especially like to receive free presents. Do you guys like free presents? You're like, what? A present, what, you've never been given a present and then like, okay, now here's the receipt. If you could just make that check out to me. You never had that happen before? Right, because the idea is that a present is free. A gift is free. And that is what grace is. The definition of grace is that it is a free gift. You can't earn it. It's given to you by someone that loves you and cares for you. Freely. That's what grace is. And I love Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 9 says this: "For grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. It is by grace that all of us have been saved, through faith, through belief in the one whom the Father has sent, Jesus Christ." It's grace, the free gift that you need to accept in order to be saved. It's not by doing works. Every religion other than Christianity is about doing something in order to earn your salvation. Not just by simply believing, but by doing something. Whether it's praying 5 times a day, whether it's giving offerings to the poor, whether it's doing a 2-year mission to some place that you don't know and riding around on bikes and stuff. It's something to earn your salvation. Jesus is saying you can't do anything. I love this story in John chapter 11 about Jesus and Lazarus and Mary and Martha. Jesus has this dear friend, Lazarus, who got sick and had died. And he had heard about it, but for some reason, it took him 4 days to get to Bethany. And we pick up the story in verse 17. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." And Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." And Jesus says to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." And he asks her this question, and I ask you this question: do you believe this? Jesus is the resurrection and the life. And she responds and says, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." What are you doing right now to earn your salvation? Really, what are you doing right now to earn your salvation? How's that going for you? Well, is it? My guess is you're probably pretty frustrated right now and discouraged and confused. And there's really good reason, because you can't earn it. Jesus is really clear that you need to accept the gift that he gives through his death and his resurrection. That you have to believe that he is the resurrection and the life. That you have to step into the fact that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one comes to the Father but through him. There is no middle ground here. It's either you believe or you don't believe. I love this parable. I think you shared it either a few weeks ago here or Ignite, but the whole parable of the Buddha's parable of the prodigal son. And there's two things here. There's a similar parable of the prodigal son within Buddhism that basically says, similar story, youngest son goes, wants the inheritance, goes, squanders it all, becomes destitute, comes back home to the father and says, "Please let me come back to the house and come back into the family." And the father says what? He says, "Go work it off. Until you've worked it off, you cannot come back to the house. You cannot be part of the family." Then we get back into Jesus' parable of the prodigal son. And what happens? Son goes, squanders everything, comes back, doesn't even get to the house before who comes running to him? The father. The father runs to him and rejoices and grabs him and hugs him, and he calls to the servants, "Prepare the fatted calf, get my robe, get the best ring, put it on my son, for this son that was lost is now found, and we're going to have a party and celebrate." There's two things that we learn from those two that are the differences between basically everybody else and the things that Jesus is bringing. It's either you do and you work it off, you try and earn your way to heaven, or you step into the fact that it's done through Jesus. So again, what are you doing right now to try and earn your salvation? Because it will fail if it hasn't already. You will be met with frustration and discouragement and hurt and pain if you continue down that road. But if you step into the doneness of who Jesus is, you will be assured that you will have life, and life to the full. So tonight, I don't know if you're one of the people who's wrestling with the whole just religion thing, and you're not even sure, but maybe we brought you a little bit closer, going, okay, I want to give this Jesus a chance. And I would just go, it's as simple as going, Jesus, I accept that free gift that you have for me. I want it. I need it desperately. I was there 23 years ago, and I stand here. I'm in the done camp. There's no movement for me. I don't want to do. I've tried to do the doing piece, and it never worked. I'm here. Where are you? We're going to take communion and recognize that night that Jesus was betrayed, that he didn't just take the bread and break it just for religion, for big church buildings. He did it so that you would have life and have it full. So when he broke that bread and he prayed and he thanked God, he said, take this bread. Every time you take it, remember me and my body broken for you for life. In the same way, he took that cup and he said, and he poured it out and he offered it and he said, this is my blood poured out for you for the new covenant, not for religion, not for a set of rules, but for life through him, through Jesus. So tonight, where are you? Maybe tonight it's another one of those nights where you need to make some decisions. And you've been on the fence and you're like trying to do you're trying to be in the middle, and there is no middle ground. It's either or. Either you believe that Jesus is the Son of God or you don't. And my hope and my prayer is that tonight you're drawing nearer to him and go, I don't want to do. I want to live life fully. So the tables are open. We have a couple stations up here, a couple in the back, and just as the band plays and sings, allow God to minister to your heart, to move you to a place of decision making. Let me pray. Father, I just thank you so much for your goodness to us. I thank you, God, that you've called us to a life of trust and obedience to you, Lord. I thank you that you've called us to a life that is full of your Son, Jesus Christ. Father, I pray that if there's anybody here right now that is still kind of wavering, Lord, that you just surround them, hug them, and love them, and let them know, God, that you love them more than anything, and that you are that Father in the parable that Jesus taught that ran to the Son. Because you will go after the one and leave the 99 behind just to see them brought back home. Help us to trust you, that the truth that you bring is full and complete and absolute. Because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And we're so thankful for that. In Jesus' name, amen.